So the video you're about to watch is me catching a male bass off the bed. What I'm doing in the video is kind of breaking down, what the fish is doing, what I'm thinking in my head, and kind of the reaction that I make to make the fish bite and how that whole process works. So I'm going to run the video real quick and show y'all, what it's like, and then I'll kind of catch back up with you at the end of the video and talk about baits, rod, reel, selections, and then kind of why I throw certain things at certain times and what I'm thinking in my head through the whole process, not just what I see in this video, but kind of the whole thing. So we're gonna run this video and I'll get back with you in a minute.
So we've got two fish on bed. I see the female now. I can see her now. She's shaded. She's on this back side, but I'm gonna kind of go through my process of what it looks like to catch a fish on bed. So the first thing I do is generally try to throw it right in the bed and just start aggravating the fish right off the bat. And this fish immediately went nose down. The female just moved in on the bed, so the male is in there. The female is just further back. I'm just going to slowly keep working this bait. I'm going to make a bunch of pitches. The male just kind of snuck in there and grabbed the bait when I wasn't looking. It's really hard to see right now because it's really windy right here, but I still see the female and the male. It won't be a matter of time before this male bites. Literally, it should be next cast. So he just picked the bait up and immediately spit it. So I use a pretty small bait. A lot of times it's because of that, because of how quick they can pick the bait up and drop it. But he's still there. He didn't feel my hook. So let's get it back in there. He's definitely agitated. He does not like that. There you go. So that's the male bass, and the nice thing about the male bass is now that the male bass is caught, the female bass will move up. So that's a little chunky male. So what we're gonna do is I'm actually do not go back in. Do not. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm taking this thing and I'm gonna move it over so that way the female can come up. This male will make it back over here. I've caught them and literally moved them to the other side of lakes, and they'll come back in like 10-15 minutes. It's crazy, but I'm gonna move them down so I can give me more time to work with the female.
So what y'all think about that? It was pretty cool, wasn't it? It happened very fast. It happened exactly the way I wanted it to. I walked around that bank, I saw that fish locked in on the bed, and I was pretty confident that I was going to catch that fish pretty quickly. Normally, if the fish is pretty locked in on the spot, you can tell by your first pitch whether you can catch that fish or not. So when I made my first pitch, I immediately said in the video, hey, that fish went nose down. So that means that that fish didn't spook off, it didn't make any circles or anything like that, that fish was catchable. If I didn't catch that fish in 10 casts, I was doing something wrong. I might have been wearing the wrong color shirt, which was too bright. Maybe I was wearing orange or yellow or, bright green or something like that. Or I was making bad casts. I could have been making bad casts, making a lot of noise, that type of stuff. So those are the things that I kind of contribute to not catching a fish that's locked down within 10 casts. If you don't catch it within 10 casts and it's locked down that tight, then you're doing something wrong. You're just making bad casts probably. That's the large majority of it. Or you might, like I said, might be wearing the wrong color shirt. If the fish made a big loop when I first made the pitch in and kind of went right back to the bed, then I probably would have caught the fish pretty quickly too. Probably less than 10 minutes. It wouldn't have taken me very long. I might have switched the baits once or twice in the middle of that and give the fish a different look every time, and probably got that fish to bite. As long as you keep pitching that bait in there and aggravating that fish and they're seeing something in their bed, they'll a lot of time react. If the fish stays out of the bed, which happens a lot too, then I kind of reassess what I'm doing. I'll pitch the bait in, leave it in, let the fish make its little route and come back in, and then I'll start moving the bait. A lot of times that's where I'll get the fish that aren't really overly committed to the bed. Maybe they're a little, tentative to sticking to the bed. Maybe somebody's been bed fishing for it before and has already hooked it and let it go. That's a lot of times how I catch those fish. If the fish comes in the bed, I make the pitch, and then it goes around and never comes back into the bed for like 30 minutes, then I pretty much walk away from that fish. Unless obviously it's a giant female and I want to catch her if it's 8 or 9 pound class fish. But if the fish is less than 6 or 7 pounds, normally I don't even mess with those bed fish if they get really tentative like that. I'll fish for about 20-30 minutes and then I'm done. I've learned a long time ago that when you find fish on bed, there's other fish on bed somewhere in that lake. Even as small a pond as that apartment complex pond that I was fishing. You know, you'll see big fish all over the place, and as the day goes on, they'll come up and get shallower and shallower. So let's kind of talk about baits real quick. So baits, pretty much my go-tos. I got 4 baits that I go to, really 3, and then the 4th one's kind of like my, if I had to make a top 4, I'd put that in my top 4, but it's really not my top 4. It's my top 3 with a little additive. But the Big Bites bait is called the Warmouth. This is my go-to. It looks like a bluegill, so if you rig it the way I rig it, it'll be nose down, and the fish really think it's eating their eggs. So that's pretty much what I throw there. I love to fish this bait. It's kind of my go-to. Number 2 bait is actually Gamma Burner Crawl, and it looks like this. But I didn't have any Gamma Burner Crawls. I ran out of them earlier this year, so I switched to the Ultraviolet Speed Crawl, and I'm waiting for the Burner Crawl to come back in stock. I use the black and blue sometimes, but I really use white the most, so white's what I go to. The biggest difference between the Burner Crawl is these claws are a little bit softer, so they got a little more movement, as you can tell right there in the video. And then this is a little bit thicker, so if you're using braid, that makes a huge difference because this one won't tear as much. Pretty much use white exclusively, as you'll see coming up. Tube baits. So tube baits, this is a Strike King flipping tube, I believe. But any white tube will work. I use the Bass Pro flipping tube sometimes too. But basically, that's about the only thing I use the tube for. But bed fishing is definitely a go-to. And then the 4th bait, like I said, is just kind of an honorable mention. Lizard. Everybody bed fish with a lizard, so I don't throw them that much. I kind of avoid the things that everybody throws. But this is definitely a killer for beds. A lot of fish can't stand seeing a lizard on their bed. But I'll fish this and a multitude of colors, but a lot of times I'll tail chartreuse. I don't fish a white one as much. I fish this in a more natural color, but I'll dye it in chartreuse a lot of times. And I'll rig that all on the same hook and weight. So I use a 3/8 ounce exclusively, generally a flipping weight, a tungsten flipping weight, and I'll peg it with the Bass Pro Shop sinker stops. And I'll tie that my line to a, generally I think I'm pretty much using a 4/0 Trocar EWG. It's the magworm hook that they make, but I also use a Gamakatsu Superline hook in the 4/0. I use the 4/0 all the time, mainly because the 4/0 fits all 4 of these styles of baits, and I don't have to worry about switching hooks and stuff like that. As in line, that's kind of up in the air for everybody. So line is kind of dependent on the person that you're asking. For me, I have 2 setups. I have a fluorocarbon setup and a braid setup. My fluorocarbon setup is 15 or 17 pound fluorocarbon. Generally, I'm using 15. I very rarely use 17. And then either 50 or 65 pound braid. Normally it's 50. So 15 fluoro, 50 pound braid. Those are the 2 that I use. And I use them on 2 different kind of rods. I use the fluorocarbon on a medium heavy action rod, and I use the braid on a heavy action rod. And kind of how I choose which one I'm going to use is depending on what is around it. So if I'm bed fishing where I was there, I was using fluorocarbon line. There's not a lot of cover around. There was one tree right there, but I wasn't really worried about it. And when I caught that fish, I pretty much put it right on the bank. So the fluorocarbon works really well for that. If I'm fishing in a place that you'll see some videos coming up soon, where I was catching some fish on bed, I use braid in that situation because there's a lot of heavy grass around. So you have to make that decision, whether you want to use braid or fluorocarbon. And once you make that decision, just go with it. It comes down to your choice. So that's kind of what I do. So that's kind of my breakdown for bed fishing. This is a simple bed fishing 101. If you have any other questions about bed fishing, don't be afraid to ask. One of the biggest things that I want to do on my channel is just throw that content out there and then be open for questions. I didn't learn all this stuff just by going fishing. I learned a lot of it from listening to other people and trying things out. Trying things in the water. So you don't learn stuff overnight, so it's really nice to be able to talk to the community and kind of figure out new stuff. Power shotting is one of the things that I kind of figured out over the years that works really well. I still don't do it much, but I get a lot of feedback from people, and I know Eric from Atypical Outdoors gets a lot of feedback from people on power shotting. It's definitely a technique people like to use for bed fishing. Just not really my thing, but we definitely like the any addition to our arsenal. One of the things I learned from Eric from Atypical Outdoors is how to throw big swim baits. So big swim baits are big for him. He actually caught a bass on a big swim bait in a video that I'll be showing coming up this week, and he'll probably be releasing on his channel coming up this week. But he caught it on a 7-inch swim bait on a bed. So those fish, they're protective, and Big Swim Bait works really, really well for him. So he tries it, and I'm definitely going to add it to my arsenal because I saw how well it worked. But thank y'all for watching. If, like I said, if you have anything that you want to, comment about or have any questions about, don't be afraid to comment below. And as always, thank you.